That is the drawing rooms where they drew the plans of Titanic by hand. And that is the last surviving ship of the White Star Line. That is the actual ship that carried first-class passengers from the port of Cherbourg out to Titanic. Titanic was too big to fit into the port at Cherbourg, so she anchored out. And that was the little ship that carried her first-class passengers out to her. The arena, massive big arena stadium, holds massive big concerts and events. Now, if you look to the right, you're going to see a river, okay? That river is the River Lagan. And Belfast was built just at the point where the River Lagan enters Belfast Lough. The word Belfast actually comes from two Irish words, Belfarstia, and that means the mouth of the River Farset. And the River Farset also empties into the Belfast Lough just where that bridge is. And the waters are now so clean that fish have come back and now live in the river, so that's nice. Just as we go round to the left, you've seen that metal sculpture there, the sculpture of a woman standing on the globe of the world. That statue is called the Spirit of Hope. The High Courts, look at the big wall round that one on the right. They're not taking any chances about people escaping from that, are they? Now, if you were down around this part of Belfast 100 years ago, you would have seen farmers herding their cattle and their sheep to market. Because just there on the left, you can see now, that is our marketplace, St. George's Market. Now, it's opened on a Friday, Saturday and Sunday. On a Friday, it's fresh produce, fish straight in off the boats. Fruit and vegetables, fresh as anything, has been here since the 1100s. But it was only in 1888 that the town of Belfast became a city. Queen Victoria granted Belfast a charter to become a city because of the role that Belfast played in the economy of the British Empire. Back in those days, Belfast was the largest exporter of linen in the world. Party bike. And one of them has just dropped their coat on the middle of the road. Do you see? Look at that. Look at that. Isn't it great to be young? Great to be young. So there they are. But if you take a look to the right, you're going to see our City Hall. Now, this is the back part of it. So I'm going to ask Kevin to do a lap around it so that you see the front of this City Hall, because it's absolutely gorgeous. The marble interiors, marble imported from Italy and from Greece. You would register births, marriages and deaths. A lot of people choose to get married in the City Hall because you can imagine just how beautiful the photographs would be standing on that sweeping staircase. So as we drive round, you'll get a good view of the front of it. You'll see the big dome, the central dome with the four corner domes. And standing directly outside it, you'll see, if you look right there, Queen Victoria. There's usually a seagull perched on her head. But not. You take a look to the right, and at the break in the trees, you'll see our gorgeous City Hall. It's definitely the most beautiful building. That's actually a photographic exhibition in the grounds of it. So you take a look there to the right. Isn't that just gorgeous? Now, as we go round the City Hall, we're going to be turning right here, and I'm going to ask Kevin to slow down, because in the gardens here on the right is the Titanic Memorial Garden. Now, if you look out to your right, it's just at the second statue here. Now, you'll see the Titanic Memorial statue. It's actually a statue of Nike, the goddess of victory. But you'll see she's holding the laurel wreath pointing downwards. That denotes a disaster. Okay? And you can see her pulling a dead sailor from the water. In behind the statue, do you see that low wall? It says Titanic Memorial Garden on that little low wall. Engraved on that wall are the names of all those who perished in the Titanic disaster. Not just the passengers, but the crew as well. And I think the saddest engraving on that little wall are the names of 11 people from the same family. John and Annie Sage and their 9 children. John Sage had put a down payment on a farm in Jacksonville in Florida. And he, his wife, the 9 children and all they could carry boarded Titanic off to the land of opportunity to make new lives for themselves. And God loved them, not even one survived. Class areas in Northern Ireland that they are divided on religious lines. When you get to the middle classes and the upper classes where there's a bit of money, the housing is much more integrated. But in working class areas they are divided by religion. The first area that we're going to, the Falls Road, is a Catholic area. Everybody in this area will be Catholic. They consider themselves to be Irish and their politics would be Republican. Now that's not like American Republican. Irish Republicans would be people who long to see the day when the north and the south of Ireland are united as a republic. Now, the second area that I'm going to take you to will be the Shankill Road area. It's a Protestant area. Everybody in the Shankill Road area would be Protestant. They do not consider themselves to be Irish. They consider themselves to be British somewhere. Look to the right. Do you see rising above those houses that wall? That wall was built in 1971 to separate the Catholics on this side from the Protestants on the other side. It's called the Peace Wall. It was supposed to be a temporary measure, but it's still there. The tradition for these political murals started during the Troubles, when the voice of the IRA, the Irish Republican Army, was not allowed to be broadcast over the radio or over the TV. They were an illegal organisation, so they censored their voice. So the IRA took the attitude, well, if you're not going to be allowed to hear our message, you're going to see it. And they started painting murals depicting their struggle. Now that the Troubles are over, the tradition for these murals has continued. And these murals now depict the political climate here in Northern Ireland and in the world in general. In the 1800s, right up to the middle of the 1900s, Belfast was the largest exporter of linen in the world. Everyone had heard of Irish linen. All the royal households of Europe all had Irish linen bedware and tableware. But can you imagine back in the days when the mills were working? These streets were row upon row of tiny little houses, and the mill workers lived in those houses. The houses were owned by the mill owners and rented out to their workers. Now, if you take a look to the street on the right, just when we pass these traffic lights, you will see the linen mill that my mummy worked in. My mum is 96, still going strong, and that is the Irish linen mill where she worked. Do you see, that's an Irish linen mill. She started there when she was 13 years of age, working the same 11-hour day as her mother and her grandmother before her. So it's very, very changed times. Taking a look at the right here, you'll see another mural. That mural commemorates the memory of Bobby Sands. Bobby Sands was an Irish Republican prisoner who died after 66 days on hunger strike. When he was in prison, he stood for election and he was voted in under the ticket of the Sinn Féin party. He was the very first Sinn Féin member of Parliament, and there are now 9 Sinn Féin members of Parliament, and they would voice the opinions of the people of this area who would all have Irish Republican views. Now, I'm taking you up this street, still on the Falls Road, still a Catholic area, and you're going to see a very interesting church. Now, the bunting and the flags and things are out because starting on Monday, there are 9 days of prayer in this church. It's called a novena, special prayers for 9 days, and thousands of people attend those special days of prayer. But this church was opened in 1830 by a group of Redemptorist priests who came to Belfast to minister to the mill workers. 3 years held secret negotiations with Catholic and Protestant paramilitary groups and got them to the point where they were prepared to lay down their arms. It's straight on, you can take a minute. The name of the church is the Church of the Most Holy Redeemer. And if it hadn't have been for the priests of that church, our politicians would probably still be talking about peace and we wouldn't be living it. See that peace wall running up the side of those houses. So you take a look down there. Do you see that peace wall running up there? Now, look directly in front of you. There's the peace wall running along the back of these houses. Do you see it peeping up above those little bungalows? And as we drive down this street, at each break in the houses, you'll see that peace wall. Okay? And in just a few minutes, I'm going to take you to the other side of the peace wall. There's an awful lot more unites us than divides us. So we're going to be turning right down Lanark Way here. Now, as we drive into this street on the right, you'll see that we are driving through gates. Open. Okay? And that is a good sign, because that shows that we have confidence in our peace process and we don't feel the need to close those gates every night. The original wall was the concrete part. Then they added on the metal bit. Then they added on the netting bit at the top. You'll also notice as we drive down here, the wall is covered with artwork. Some of it is quite sophisticated artwork. Other artwork is like young people's graffiti tags. That's because most of this artwork has been done by young people, young Catholics and Protestants working together in reconciliation projects. It's a way to bring both the groups together. As I say, young people don't live in the same area, so they don't get a chance to hang out with each other, to become friends, to build up relationships. So these reconciliation projects are ways of bringing both groups together. Now, if you look really, really closely at the wall, you will see that it is covered with hundreds of thousands of signatures. That's because when people come to Belfast to visit us, to visit our peace wall, we invite them to sign their names on the peace wall and maybe write a little message of peace for the people of Belfast. So when we turn and come back up, I'm going to ask Kevin to stop the bus. bonfire will be over 40 foot high. Really, you'll see the flags on top of it. Lots of competition by the different groups. Now, not all the murals and expressions of culture on this road are as sectarian or as sinister as that one. Coming up on the right, just at the trees at the next block here, is a little memorial garden dedicated to the men from this area who fought and died in the 2 world wars. There were so many men from this area joined the British Army during the wars to fight that they even had their own battalion, the Ulster Division. This mural on the right, the Ulster Tower, that commemorates a First World War battle in Thiepval in France, where so many men from this area went out to fight and never returned. Coming up on the left, on the next gable, there's a mural celebrating the Diamond Jubilee of the Queen, okay, and showing portraits of her at various stages during her reign. Over to the right where the flags are, another memorial garden dedicated to men from this area that died that were killed during the Troubles. It's important that you remember that our Troubles, they lasted 30 years. There were nearly 4,000 people killed, but it was people on both sides of the community. It wasn't a one-way thing. People on both sides of our community suffered and suffered badly. So thank God we're now living in times of peace. Now, as we go down this street, I'm going to take you to the Crumlin Road, where you're going to see 2 very interesting buildings. One of these buildings is the old jailhouse, the other is the old courthouse. Neither of these buildings now serve their original intended purpose. It's on the right hand side, the jailhouse is on the left, and there is a tunnel going right in below this road, linking both buildings. So if you were up in court and found guilty, you never saw the light of day. Beautiful building that courthouse once was. Okay. And if you look to the left, there's the jailhouse. Now, 2 very different buildings, but the same architect. Look at the jailhouse wall. Look slightly behind you, you'll see the lookout tower. Okay, it looks a very sinister building. Even driving past it now still gives me the shivers. This brown brick building on the left, that's the original part of one of the Belfast hospitals, Mater Infamorum Hospital, with the big glass extension. Okay, Mater Infamorum, Mother of the Sick. That there is a link between them. That lovely church there on the right hand side, that was the old Methodist cathedral in Belfast, but the Methodist congregation in this part of Belfast has dwindled so much. They deconsecrated the church and sold it, and it has been bought by the Indian community, showing just how multicultural we are now becoming. There's a Hindu temple in it now. From the outside of it, it was cleaned up. They restored the stonework and cleaned it up just about 5 years ago. And when they were doing that, they sort of cleaned up the interior as well. And when they were cleaning up one of the paintings in it, they found out that it was a Caravaggio, done by the Italian Grand Master Caravaggio, and it has, apparently it's worth thousands and thousands of pounds. So for over 70 years it just hung on the wall of the church. It's not just hanging on the wall of the church now, let me tell you. I think it's in a vault somewhere that was not old or old-fashioned looking. They wanted something futuristic that looked to a peaceful Belfast, and that's what they came up with. Now, I totally get what they're doing, but I think it just still looks a bit weird. It's a very beautiful cathedral. The ceiling beams of that cathedral are built of Australian sequoia. The cathedral quarter. That's where all the pubs and the clubs and the restaurants of Belfast are. The cathedral quarter, that's always... We'll be turning left at the lights down at the bottom of this street, and directly in front of you, you're going to see a very famous Belfast landmark. It's the Albert Memorial Clock, the Albert Clock. It's a clock tower, Albert Clock. There we are, can you see it? Now, those of you with a straight eye will notice that it leans over to one side. Do you see that? It stands 1.25 metres off the vertical. And that's because it was built on reclaimed land. At one time, the Belfast Lock came right up to where the clock is sitting now. Okay, so they've reclaimed that land, and when they built the clock there, it's liable to subsidence. But don't worry, it isn't going to fall over. Look at the little fountains all dancing at the side. We are going to be turning right here, and I know some people are interested in seeing the big fish. You can see the big fish in front of you, and if you look sort of behind you, okay, yes, there, we're going to be stopped at the lights. If you look in front of you, you'll see it's a piece of public art. That blue ceramic fish, do you see it there? Okay, that fish was built to commemorate the waters of the River Lagan running pure again. Okay, can you see? Well, you can see the tail of it anyway. It's a very interesting piece of street art. When we go round the corner, now you'll be able to see the face. Do you see it there? That's the big fish. And we'll be heading to get a better view of it now. Looking to the left. There, do you see the doll on the ball now? And that's a representation of the hope and the confidence of the people of Belfast that our peace process continues. Concert Hall and Conference Centre. The last thing I saw in there, the last show, was James Taylor, Hearts of Belfast. And there's a pub in a street running parallel to this on the right.
The notice board is right opposite the elevator. They haven't given me my case yet, so the notice isn't up, but that's where it'll be. When you come out the elevators, you turn right and the restaurant is there. Dinner is at 7 o'clock tonight. 7 o'clock tonight. Oh, but duper pub. It's one of the most famous pubs in Ireland. Meghan and Harry were there a couple of weeks ago.